They say there are some sounds you're never meant to hear. And if you do, you don't laugh. Deep in the forest of Calabar, hidden beneath thick canopies and ancestral silence, there is a drum that plays without hands. No drummer, no festival, just the beat, heavy, distant, and alive. They call it the drum of the Hekpe. It is sacred, forbidden, a sound reserved for kings, spirits, and the dead. Not tourists, not strangers, and definitely not for content. But last December, a girl from Lagos came to visit. A rising content creator. Loud, curious, and always recording. She had the drum. She laughed. She made jokes. She danced. She posted it online. To her, it was just a sound, a funny, eerie moment to go viral. But when she returned to the city, the drum didn't stay behind. It followed her, and she was the only one who could hear it. The girl's name was Ima. She was 23, lived in Lagos, and made a living telling the internet where to eat, what to wear, and which places were aesthetic enough to visit. Her phone was always in her hand, a ring light was always in her bag, and every moment of her life felt incomplete unless it had been recorded. When a university friend invited her to Calabar for a short holiday, Ima didn't hesitate. She needed new content, new scenery, something different from the usual Lagos traffic, rooftop bars, and beach sunsets. Calabar felt perfect. The air was cleaner, the roads were quieter, the trees stood taller and older, as if they had been watching people come and go for centuries. Everywhere Ima turned, she saw stories waiting to be filmed. She documented everything, the food, the old buildings, the way the night felt heavier than Lagos nights. Even the silence seemed louder. On the third day, a friend suggested a short trip outside town, a forest trail locals used during festivals and traditional ceremonies. Ima's eyes lit up immediately. Forest content always did well online. As they drove, her friend warned her casually, almost as an afterthought. Some places here aren't for joking around, she said, especially the old forest paths. If you hear anything strange, don't mock it. Emma laughed. This is not Nollywood, she replied. Everything is content. They reached the edge of the forest just before evening. The sun was already sinking, throwing long shadows between the trees. The air felt cooler there, heavier. Emma stepped out of the car and lifted her phone, already recording. That was when she heard it, a slow, steady drumming, deep, distant, not loud, but powerful enough to be felt more than heard. Boom, boom, boom. Emma's smile widened. Her friend froze. Did you hear that? Emma asked, excited. Her friend nodded slowly, her expression changing. Yes, we should go back. But Emma was already laughing. A drum in the forest? This is perfect, she said, turning her camera toward the trees. Imagine the views. And without waiting for permission, she walked toward the sound. The deeper Emma walked into the forest, the louder the drumming became. Not by much, just enough to remind her that it was still there, still watching, still waiting. Boom, boom, boom. The rhythm was slow, measured, and deliberate, like the heartbeat of something old and patient. She stopped on the trail, turned to face the trees, and raised her phone again. Okay, guys, she said into the camera. I'm officially in Calabar Forest, and tell me why some ancestral DJ is dropping beats. She laughed, loud and carefree. Behind her, her friend stood frozen at the edge of the path. She didn't say anything, just stared into the trees with a quiet fear on her face. Emma turned the camera toward her and grinned. Look at this one, she teased, acting like we're in a horror movie. It's just sound. She faced the forest again, placed one hand on her hip, and started dancing. A slow, exaggerated twerk to match the beat. Boom, boom, boom. The video lasted about 20 seconds. She added a caption that said, Afro beats from the ancestors, let's vibe, and posted it before her friend could say anything. Then, just like that, the drumming stopped. Silence filled the forest, a thick, unnatural silence that made the air feel colder than before. Ima frowned and looked around. Anne, why did it stop? A friend didn't answer. She was already walking back to the car. You're not serious, Ima muttered, jogging after her. Back at the car, her friend finally spoke. You shouldn't have done that, she said quietly. That drum, it's not for us. Ima rolled her eyes. Relax, it's just sound. And that content is going to blow. She didn't notice the slight pressure in her ears, or the way the wind no longer moved through the trees, or the fact that the birds had stopped singing. All she knew was that her phone buzzed twice. New likes, new followers, new comments. She smiled. Somewhere in the forest, the drum beat once more, softer this time, but not for everyone, just for her. That night, back at her friend's house, Ima lay in bed, scrolling through the comments on her post. The video was blowing up. Thousands of views already. People were laughing, sending crying emojis, making jokes about spiritual vibes and ancestor playlists. A few comments wonder, you know they fear? Better go do cleansing, oh. But Ima just liked them and moved on. She was winning. Just as she was about to put her phone down, she heard it. Faint, almost nothing, but familiar. A slow, steady drum beat. Boom, boom, boom. She sat up, looked around the room. Nothing. The sound seemed to be coming from outside. She walked to the window, opened the curtain. Still nothing. No movement, no music. The street was quiet. She turned back toward the room, and the sound stopped. She waited. Silence. Shrugging, she got back into bed. The next morning, she didn't mention it. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe someone was playing music in the distance. It didn't matter. She had more content to post, but as the day went on, the drumming returned. In the car, on the way to the market, just beneath the sound of the engine. At the salon, when the hairdryer was off and the chatter paused. In the back of an Uber, only when she was alone in the back seat. Always the same beat. Always soft, always steady. Boom, boom, boom. She asked her friend once in the middle of lunch, Do you hear that? That sound like a drum? A friend paused, listened, then shook her head. I don't hear anything. Emma tried to laugh it off, but a smile felt tight. That night she wore headphones to bed, blasted Afro beats, turned the volume all the way up. But beneath the bass, beneath the rhythm, the drum was still there. Boom, boom, boom. It wasn't loud, but it was always close, and it was never far behind. The first dream came 3 nights after they returned from the forest. Ima found herself standing in a wide open space, a clearing surrounded by tall, endless trees. The sky above her was pitch black, but the ground was lit with a soft reddish glow, like firelight without flames. In front of her stood a circle of masked figures, dressed in flowing white, their bodies swaying rhythmically. Each of them held a drum. Their hands moved in perfect unison, striking with slow, heavy beats. Boom, boom, boom. The sound was hypnotic, not just in her ears, but in her chest, in her spine, like it was moving something inside her. She tried to speak, but no words came out. Then, one of the masked figures turned toward her. Slowly, deliberately, it stepped out of the circle and walked closer. With every step, the drum beat grew louder, but the others kept playing, unbothered. The figure stopped in front of her and raised its hands to remove the mask. It was her face underneath, expressionless, silent, eyes completely white. The reflection of herself stared at her for a long moment, then tilted its head, like it was studying her, judging her. Then the reflection opened its mouth and began to scream. Emma jolted awake, drenched in sweat. Her chest was tight, her ears were ringing, and even though her room was silent, she could still feel the beat in her body. She didn't sleep the rest of the night, but the next night it came again, and the next, each dream different, but always the same circle, the same rhythm, the same white-eyed version of herself, getting closer and closer each time. She tried to block it out, played worship music, left the lights on, slept during the day. Nothing worked. The dreams kept coming, and somewhere deep in her, something was changing. She started humming the drum rhythm without realizing, started tapping her fingers to the beat during conversations. Her movement slowed, as if her body was syncing with something else. It wasn't just a sound anymore, it was inside her. By the end of the week, Emma was exhausted. She hadn't posted in days. A drafts folder sat untouched. Her followers were still growing, but the excitement she once felt had vanished. She couldn't explain it. She felt heavy, slower, like her body moved to a different rhythm, one she hadn't chosen. Still, she tried to shake it off, get back to normal. Content waits for no one. She set up a ring light in her friend's guest room, brushed her hair, added some lip gloss, and opened her front camera. But the moment the camera turned on, it started recording by itself. No countdown, no prompt, just her on screen, staring back at herself. The strange thing was, she wasn't doing anything. But on the screen, she was moving, swaying side to side, slowly, like she was dancing. Emma froze. She wasn't moving, but the image was. She forced herself to show the app and delete the video. 10 seconds later, it reappeared in her gallery. This time, the clip was longer. Her reflection smiled faintly at the end, a smile she knew she hadn't made. She turned off the phone and left it on the table. An hour later, the screen lit up on its own. The same video began to play, silently, no music, just the faint echo of a drum in the background. Boom, boom, boom. She backed away slowly. Later that night, she tried to play music, anything to drown the rhythm. Gospel, Afrobeat, ambient noise. Nothing worked. Every song glitched, cut, or warped into that same haunting beat. Even voice notes started malfunctioning. She'd send a message, and her friends would reply confused. Why did you just send a drum rhythm? She checked her sent audio. No voice. Just that beat. Boom, boom, boom. Her phone, the one tool she'd used to document her world, was no longer obeying her. Now, it was documenting something else. Something she couldn't see, but could feel. Emma waited until her friend had left for work. She didn't tell anyone what she planned to do. There was no point. They wouldn't believe her. They couldn't hear the drum. They couldn't feel it inside their bones the way she did. It never stopped now. The beat pulsed in her ears from the moment she woke up. It echoed through her steps, synced with her breath, shadowed her voice. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think. The only thing she knew was this. The forest wanted her back. She took a boat ride to the edge of the trail. The driver looked at her strangely when she asked to be dropped off alone. You sure you want to go in there? He asked. She nodded without speaking. As soon as she stepped onto the path, the sound changed. The drumbeat grew softer, not distant, but respectful, like it had been waiting. The deeper she went, the quieter everything else became. No birds, no wind, no sound except the drum. Boom, boom, boom. When she reached the same clearing from before, The air felt heavier, like stepping into a room filled with unseen people. And then she saw it. At the base of a tree stood a small wooden stool. On top of it sat a carved calabash, glowing faintly with red markings. Thick smoke curled out of its mouth, twisting upward into the trees. She didn't speak, didn't ask what it meant. She simply walked forward, stood in front of it, and waited. And then a whisper, not a voice, not words, just the feeling of something entering her thoughts. You laughed, it said. Now you lead. She didn't remember falling, but when her body hit the ground, her eyes were wide open and completely white. 3 days later, the video appeared online. No one knew who posted it first. It wasn't on Ima's account. It wasn't tagged. There was no caption, no watermark, just raw footage. A young woman, dressed in white, standing barefoot in the middle of a forest clearing. She was dancing, not wildly, not playfully, just swaying, slowly, with perfect rhythm. Her eyes were wide open, glowing white, her mouth fixed in a soft, unnatural smile. In the background, barely audible, was the sound of a slow drum beat. Boom, boom, boom. The comments exploded. Who is this? This is creepy but kinda aesthetic NGL. Afro beats but make it haunted. Real forest core energy. No one realized what they were watching. No one saw the warning. They saved the video, shared it, reposted it with remixes and filters. Some even tried to imitate the dance, calling it the hashtag Forest Drum Challenge. But no one could match her movement because she wasn't dancing for them. She was dancing for the drum. They say the forest drum doesn't play often, only when it has something to say or someone to claim. Most people will never hear it. Most who do run. But she laughed, and in that laugh, the drum found a rhythm it hadn't had in years. It didn't need permission, it only needed attention. Now, when the forest stirs, people don't hear birds or wind. They hear a slow, steady beat, and somewhere beneath it, a girl dancing, eyes open, mouth smiling, moving to a rhythm no one else can follow. So if you ever find yourself walking near the woods and you hear a drum with no drummer, a beat with no music, a sound that makes your heart slow down just enough to listen, don't laugh, don't record, and whatever you do, don't dance. This is just one of the many stories whispered through Nigeria's forests, rivers, and shadows. Some are warnings, some are curses, and some, like this one, are still unfolding. If you want to hear more, subscribe to Moonlight to Tales by NK, where African folklore isn't just remembered, it's reborn.